Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. All right, that good and loud? Well, I didn't really think I would share all this, but they bounced me yesterday morning and thought I should. So, here we go. I got to take off a week from, 2 weeks from work. And last week we went to Caring for the Hearts. It was an in-depth training seminar on their thoughts and ways that they use, their teaching models that they use, how to counsel people. And I know there's all kinds of different ways, and there's all kinds of different giftings in the ways that people help each other to freedom. And this is ways that they have used that have had tremendous results, and ways that we have seen in our life because we got exposed to this material before we were married, and it just changed their life. It was just amazing how God used it in our life. I just got a real quick couple notes. It's like, how do you crunch down 35, 40 hours of teaching and pull out a couple notes in 5-10 minutes? So you just got to, something doesn't make sense, don't pull out your guns. We can talk about it later if that's what you want to do. Some of their goals is just to set people free, to lead people to a deeper relationship to God or to a new relationship to God if they don't know God, and to help people see who they are and what the potential is that they have in God's kingdom. That's their core mission statement, and that's exactly what they do. We went. John Regier was in teaching at Faith Mennonite about 5-6 years ago. That was spring before we were married. We started dating. We had our first date New Year's 6 years ago. And in April we went to this counseling session. It was an open counseling session there at Faith Mennonite. He had about there was probably 300 people there. It was evening sessions. Were pretty much based on just resolving problems. Like, he went over bitterness, hypocrisy, moral failures, all those things. He's kind of got his things where he teaches on these subjects and what causes these things, what brings them out in people's lives. You don't just wake up one morning and you're angry at life. It doesn't work that way. There's things that happen in each person's life that modify them, if you can say it that way, or that bring them to that point where they hate life. They're angry at life. They just, or they, sometimes it's just getting around with the wrong people. Sometimes it's getting around with the right people that influence you the right or the wrong way. But anyways, what I was sharing is we went through this book ourselves as a couple. It's called Preparing for Marriage. It's got about 12 chapters and a whole mess of charts so you can fill out. It's got the design is, his design as a premarital counseling is, he says it's not fair that we go into a marriage relationship that could last 60 years and we don't know every single thing about each other. And I agree with that. Because if you don't, you'll have surprises. And what if it's a surprise you're not okay with? Well, I'm not saying that that's all wrong. It can all be worked out. But there is a lot of things that can be prevented if we simply just sit down and talk through things. And this is forms that he's put together that have really been a blessing for a lot of people. It gave us a foundation to start off of. We went through the book, but we were probably, you would say, too hard-headed to actually go to a counselor and sit down and say, what do you see? You see some other things. What's your revelation on this kind of stuff? Because, we didn't understand all that stuff to start with. But we did go through it. We prayed through a lot of the things. But we ran up against a lot of roadblocks that we just didn't know what to do with. So we just kind of said, okay, this is just, we'll just do the best we can. Anyways, they came back, and some of those things have been the biggest challenge in our marriage. But we have had an emotional foundation to start off with we were taught a different way of marriage than what we had seen practiced in our life. I don't mean it in a bad way. Any of these statements that I say, I'm just sharing my culture, my family, not to degrade them, but just so that we can understand where we come from. And it's a tendency in our culture to, with the driven culture, the workforce-based culture we got, that the emotional connection between husband and wife, and especially between husband and children, is usually very small. And that leads to a lot of damage, a lot of things that shouldn't be that way. Everybody grows up getting hurt some point in life or the other. They'll either be rejected, they won't be given what they need, there's just all kinds of things. Everybody faces something, either from family, friends, something that they have a challenge with. I already see I got way too many notes here. I got to keep cutting down. There's a bunch of quotes he gave out last week, which is 98% of counseling is cognitive, which is head knowledge. A lot of the counselors nowadays just lead you through things to, they say just, talk positive and you'll get over it. Just, what do you say? Just talk positive, just, say that I'm awesome every morning and you'll be all right. You'll get over your depression after a while. Might. But it won't, if you don't deal with the core problem, the core issue, it won't work in a long-term thing. He's from his research, he's seen that 90% of our spiritual problems come from an emotional pain or rejection or some kind of thing that we've faced in the past. What I mean by a spiritual problem is how we view God, how we, what we think of God, our connection with God, our relationship with God is often formed by the way we view our parents. He has the people that come into his offices, 80% of the people, their earthly father, as he is, that's how they view their heavenly Father. So there's some people that are pretty far from God, or they think God is way out there somewhere where, they don't know what's going to happen, or they fear him. So the name kind of speaks for itself as far as caring for the heart. What would happen if we as a church would bind together and start caring for each other? I know there's people that do. I know there's people that do. But what does it really mean to care for people? Care for people's hearts. To understand that as we're going through life, everybody is facing a challenge. There's always some kind of thing. Anyways, if you're a Christian. Maybe not if you're not a Christian. But if you're a Christian, you're in warfare. We heard it. If you're always comfortable, I say there's something wrong. Because if you haven't been stretched in the last week, last 2 months, whatever, last day, you probably are really lukewarm or maybe getting cold even. That's my thoughts on that. There's things that you see in the way people react to pressures. Just for instance, I was mocked in school. Didn't have any emotional connection with my father. What do you think that did to me? Released, walking over that, and it's to stand up here. And now I just enjoy sharing the things that God. That we have in a childhood, you're gonna that does something to yourself in your youth years. You're trying so hard for acceptance, you'll probably get rejected. And we won't even go with that because each, like wife rejected, and she feels husband, for some reason, responds in frustration, and husbands can't handle the frustration, and then he withdraws, and then the wife feels rejected again because he just withdraws further and further, and the cycle just goes around and around unless you stop it. And we have the power to stop it by the glory of God through his shed blood. We can renounce those things, but first we got to figure them out. If you don't see you have a problem, where are you going to go with it? That's kind of the thing. He's got books and books and books of charts. To some people it might seem like it's too organized, like he's got too many charts, but he has all these charts, and they really depend on just, God, what does this person need? And they'll sit down. Their theory is, or the way they do it is 15 hours of counseling, 3 hours each day for 5 days in a row. That's what we took. February a year ago, we did that. And that's where my wife met God. God became really real in our lives and just changed our spiritual walk, because we went from viewing God as something a little bit out there, you don't really connect with him, to realizing that he's an intimate, loving God. That was a little bit of our summary there. There's 3 kinds of issues that people deal with: an emotional pain, spiritual or emotional abuse, spiritual abuse, and then oftentimes if people get involved in, he calls it the enemy, which in plainer words is demonic, it's Satan. The occults people get involved in. So we just need to see if we can, well, we know that we can, but when people walk into your life and you want to help them out, you need to help them see what they're involved in, and then bring that up and renounce it, pray through it, and just break it off. And that's the way that they work through these things. A little bit of something that just, as I relate to people, and I hear a guy saying something that, hey, life is just miserable. And this type of concept has helped me majorly in realizing that he probably is struggling with something, What if every time that somebody would walk up to you and just start off on a miserable rant about something, you just stop. You just care for him. Just say, hey, is there something, you want to talk about something, just listen to him, care for him, understand him, just give him some unconditional love. Never judge somebody. Just because of a miserableness there, and you go like, you're a miserable dude, quit it. That's not going to help him anything. Just care for him, and then, hopefully they'll open up their life and you can lead them to freedom. That's something that is very powerful. I see that if we as a church would use that, as we're going about our daily walk of life, we could really make a difference in people's personal lives, and then those people will enlarge the circle, go out and make a difference there. So let's just do that. Like I said before, never judge anybody just because of what they're saying, because it blocks the flow of love, which it blocks the flow of God's love that's coming through us, and we judge him. That flow, the living waters, won't flow out to that person if we're judging them. That's a major thing of that. So we need to, instead of judge them, let's accept the people, love them, and care about the people that we meet. And coming from our culture, that's kind of hard, or it has been kind of hard, I should say, because you weren't used to being open and just talking about personal life. You just didn't do that. For sure not the men. But that has changed in my life, and it's been a tremendous blessing. Blessings just flow more if you walk with the way that God has designed you to walk. And that's encouraging. So there's like I said, there's all these books that he has, and I have just a couple of them along. If you want to just page through them this afternoon, you're welcome to do that. I'll have them back here on the table if you want to just look at them, and if you can learn something, it's good. I feel there's a lot of good things he has to learn there. And next week, I think I'm going to get to sit with some of you brothers out here, and we're looking forward to that, to see what we can learn there. And if they see things in our life that aren't right yet. So we're excited about that. So just an encouragement that through the challenges of marriage, talking especially to the married people, you know, I don't know, maybe you guys have perfect marriages. Well, I should say I know that you're not perfect, you're probably striving. But that's good. So just, if you see, just each morning, spend some time together, or evening, or whichever works best for you guys. Be emotionally connected, not just being around each other, working with each other, going to bed with each other, and rising again in the morning, but actually take time to care for each other. Just to say, you know, you're special. I just want you to know that I really love you. And I care about your work. You know, if your wife you come home and your wife has been really busy and she's overwhelmed and tired, and let's just take time and care for our wives. And likewise, wives to the husbands. When the husbands come home and they're tired and worn out, and let's just take time out of our days and just sit down with each other and just care for each other. That way we can, as a team, be more dynamic in God's kingdom. I believe that a wife and a husband walking together can really make a difference in God's kingdom. If there's only one, yeah, they can make a difference. But if there's two, look out. So the other thing is watching our children, how they respond to things, so that we don't cause these pains that they have to grow up and then go to the counselor and get resolved. We can prevent a lot of these things in our families, at home. I've been learning about that, and we've just put some things in practice, especially in the last couple of weeks, but we were a little bit on a journey before that. We had got a hold of Michael Pearl's To Train Up a Child book, which really just flipped our mindsets on how to train a child. We just couldn't believe that a young child, you can actually teach them this much stuff. And we're still working on that, so you don't have to look at our children and say they know how to do it all, because we're still working on it. But it's exciting. I'm really excited to see how we can speak life into our children. You can change the outlook of their life. You can change how they respond just by simply loving them, speaking life into them, and gently correcting them in a proper way. There's a couple of notes down here that no one is depressed if they're genuinely loved. How can somebody be depressed if they're in an atmosphere that's saturated with love and life? If people are speaking life to you, how can you walk away from it feeling depressed? It counteracts. You can overcome a depressed person's attitude by speaking life into them just for a couple minutes. If they come at you, they're just discouraged about life, you don't have to attack them with, get over it. It's depression. You don't need to be that way. It's not life. But just speak life to them, encourage them, and if they open your heart to them, then you can take them to the spiritual part of it. That's one thing. Another thing that he shared with me, there's a couple verses, I forgot to write them down here. Genuine love destroys a person's ability to sin. Did we ever think about that? If we as a family have genuine love, which of your children are going to walk out of the home and not going to want to be with you? If we display genuine love in the home, as couples, as parents, and speak life, love into our children, your children aren't going to team. I mean, I know for myself, I went seeking for things and fell into junk. And just because I was seeking for something I wasn't getting at home, that if my parents would have supplied it, I probably wouldn't have went out looking for it. Well, I know I wouldn't have went out looking for it. There might have been times when I would have got exposed to it, but I would have had no desire. He shared a testimony of, there was a guy that came into his office and shared a story of when he was about 13 years old. There was him and two of his friends were exposed to pornography. His two friends became addicted to it, and he didn't. So this really stirred John's interest. Why did your two friends get, addicted to this pornography? Why didn't you get addicted to it? What happened? He said, well, I had no desire for it. I mean, I had so much fun at home. I didn't want to go out back in the woods looking at pornography. Really, let that sink in and just realize that if we have a connection with our children, we care about our children, they won't have a desire to do that if you encourage them to spend time with you yourself. So that's about it. It was a really interesting week, and we got to learn some more things, and some more things came up where we had slipped back. We're just come back into general life, and after a while you kind of forget some of the things you learned a year ago, and it's been a blessing. But let's just care for each other, love each other. One key point for myself is to not judge people, just to love them, speak life, and let's be a blessing to each other. God bless you all.